Everyone, and welcome to another reading of the patch notes so you can know what the hell's going on the Rift. I'm going to be your host, Trombone. Be sure to comment what you think the biggest impact change is. Lux. But of course, feel free to like and subscribe for more videos like this, things like this. I'm sorry that for the late upload. New jobs got me preoccupied, but it made it out, and it's before the next patch, so I'm going to count it as a win. It was a pretty big one, so let's just dive right in. We're going to start with Amumu because alphabetically and in the patch notes, and that's how I like to do this. So his passive got almost like a mini rework. So basically he's going to apply a curse to enemies, and that's going to allow any source of magic damage, so on your team or in general, on that champion to do 15% of the damage dealt to be dealt again as true damage. So I'm going to let you know my opinion on impact of like all of these changes right now, just because this is the big one. I feel like it's going to be broken as hell. I feel like even though it's not going to be able to be abused as well in lower elos, that it's still going to do massive damage and be a game changer in any elo. But again, pretty big impact, but he also has some other changes. His W, in my opinion, also a little bit of a buff. So they upped his damage per second and made it apply every half second, although it's half the damage since it's every half second. So the actual damage per second is not going to change, but it's going to be more. That didn't make any sense, but if you followed along, congratulations. The kicker of this buff is that it also refreshes the new passive on all enemies hit, allowing a shit ton of true magic damage to go through constantly. And lastly, his ult is going to apply the same curse that we've been talking about to all enemies hit, but only after the damage from the ult is dealt, reducing the broken a little bit, but keep an eye out for some crazy shit that's going to come out from this Amumu change. Moving on to Alistar. Alistar is now going to heal all nearby allies off his passive. That was his E, so now it's more like his old E and not his newer passive. Confused yet? Good. But the point is, it's definitely a buff. His E is also going to get better with lower cooldowns and more damage on the empowered attack by like 90 damage at level 18. So yeah, definitely a buff. Granted, these are some really nice buffs for Alistar, but I don't see him making a huge splash in the low elo scene. But I will be excited to see what the best supports in the world are going to be capable of when he becomes more of an option in pro play again. Moving on to everyone's favorite weird chime collecting bastard Bard. So we reworked Bard's passive, and they said it'll be fun. Let's give 15 more damage every 5 meeps, and all of the bronze ADCs cried because they never saw their support Bard again. The end. Moving on to Camille. So for Camille, they took away her heal on minions from her W, which, if I'm being completely honest, I didn't know existed anyway. But they also reduced her ult time on her lower 2 ranks, which really lessens and, in my opinion, kind of kills the effectiveness of her ult early. Seeing as they're cutting it by 1.5 seconds at the lowest rank, which, it doesn't seem like a lot, but in game time, 1 second is even quite a bit. So 1.5 seconds is a good deal more. Overall, I think they just put Camille in a really competitive spot where she doesn't really need to be banned all the time. Conspiracy theory, I think Riot was really proud of Camille on release, and they should have been. She was a really cool champion. And they're just going to keep nerfing her until they see a lot of her in pro play. But those are just the ravings of a madman, so go ahead and enjoy Camille now that you can play her again. Moving on to Galio. They just released him. Nah, that was last patch. But they cut the damage on his passive, but honestly not by a whole lot, only 20 damage at level 18. So not a huge impact there. They also gave his Q some tweaks. So they upped his AP ratio, which sounds like a buff, but they also took 3% max health off his tornado zone damage. So all in all, in theory, they just balanced it a bit better. I think we can expect to see Galio just the same amount, if not just a bit less. So, moving on to Graves. They took away his cigar. Bastards. Sorry, I couldn't help myself, but getting into the real changes, they took magic resistance away from his E. They wanted to give Graves a weakness. I think they may have done it, but I don't think it's going to be super exploitable at lower elos. I'm probably wrong. I've never balanced this game, so I couldn't really tell you, but I think he's still pretty powerful. Just a bit more squishy, so you can't go all gung-ho, Rambo and shit on Graves. Moving on to Jarvan IV, the third of the royal bloodline of Jarvania. They gave him a better shield on his W, so now you can get a bigger base shield and hella shield if you build tank in the later game. That was a little bit of what happened and my impact. So, moving on to Jinx. I can't believe they touched an ADC because somebody told me that they didn't. They lied. See, don't listen to all the YouTubers, friends. They skip over things. That's why I'm reading these patch notes to you, for you, giving opinions. Anyway, don't listen to people that... Don't listen to this. Jinx. They reduced her E cooldown, so that's pretty freaking cool. I might actually be able to play her more again, or want to play her more again. Especially being that crit champs are, coming back a little bit more. The cooldown reduction makes Jinx kind of a neat prospect looking forward. Kassadin, he got some huge buffs, but nobody's still going to play him. Sorry, Riot, everyone hates him. But in reality, the buffs aren't that huge. He's just a lot more viable than Bronze treats him right now. So his W has an empowered attack that's no longer going to cancel if your opponent leaves, the range of that W while the spell is winding up. His E has a second less of cooldown, like what we were saying earlier. Second makes a big difference. Now at 5 seconds, making it damn near spammable. His ult also has a better AP ratio, allowing for better viability. Are we going to see a lot of them at low elo? I highly doubt it, but I do see him making more of an appearance in higher elo, maybe even pro play again. Moving on to Katarina. Is anyone else tired of these patch notes yet? No? Alright, well that just means this is definitely going to get some timestamps. So, they're making Katarina's base cooldown for her E longer at earlier ranks, but at 5 it's still the same, and I don't think this is going to affect the cooldown reduction from her passive any. Overall, this just means that Kat has a more balanced early game, but also hurts her hardcore snowball that she tends to have. So, take this nerf how you will. Lux. She's going to see more games than when her Elementalist skin was released because her ult is now going to refund up to 50% cooldown. That's right, 50% cooldown at max rank if you kill the champion with it. So just everyone brace yourselves for another fucking Lux hurricane. Moving on to Nunu, the only champion where I feel comfortable writing their name in all caps. Obviously you can't see that because I am reading, but yeah, that's what I did. So his base health and his health regen are going to be lower. They also made a change to his passive. I don't really play Nunu. I don't know what it was before, so I don't know if it's better or worse, but here's the gist of it. His next ability is upgraded by a rank, going above if the ability is already at max rank, but it doesn't specify when this is going to happen or cooldown on it, anything like that. So, look forward to that. Basically, you're just going to do a lot more damage, and any effects that were on those abilities are going to be amplified when his passive procs. So they also touched his Q, taking down damage but allowing it to do more damage if you proc his new passive. His healing for his Q is lower at all ranks except rank 5, and obviously the healing is really good when you proc his passive. Overall, I feel like Nunu is where Kassadin is. He's definitely more viable, but I don't think we're going to see that reflected in lower ranks. That's my opinion. Take it or leave it. Moving on to Rengar. I'm not even going to cover this one. He got more nerfs, obviously, but I just thought he was in a good place to begin with recently. But apparently Riot just wants to nerf his various abilities until he's never going to be viable again. I still miss you, LeBlanc. You beautiful bastard. Never forget. Anyway, they reduced his Q damage for all of you that watch this for actual real information. Moving on to Rumble. His harpoons have a longer recharge time. They're now 6 seconds instead of 5 seconds. We've talked about how many a second is and how that impacts the game. Other than that, Rumble's pretty much the same. Is he going to hurt overall? A little bit, but it's not going to change him all that much. Shaco, this one's kind of interesting. So his passive now has an AP ratio, which is really neat. Makes Shaco a bit more viable. No, I'm not even gonna go there. I'm not even gonna go into AP Shaco. That's just a pipe dream that I've had for a long time since I started watching Darkmane when I was a young lad in League. Anyway, and his AD ratio is reduced. And is actually going to be flat at all levels. They also got rid of, and this is important, this is the actual interesting part, they got rid of all of the damage on his Q. All of it. Like, all gone. Not hyperbole, nothing. Like, no more damage. And his cooldown and his Q is also higher at lower ranks. Take it how you will. Alright, Syndra. We're not going to touch this one either because it just specifies alt-ball interactions. I mean, if you're that hardcore about the game or Syndra yourself, you probably have read the notes and know what's going on already. You play the game, so you know where the patch notes are. Go read them. I'm not going to leave them in the description. You know better than that. Alright, moving on to Talon. Talon's Q base damage is reduced at early ranks, but still the same at max rank. And as for overall impact, I think what I said about Katarina actually applies really well here, so I'm not going to go too deep into that. Moving on to Volibear, the last champion. Thank God we're here. His ult can now bounce double the amount of times, up to 8 from 4. However, there is going to be a delay between bounces instead of being simultaneous. And his ult will be better at hunting down trailer parks. I know the ability isn't named Tornado Claws, but I wanted to make that joke work. So, deal with it. And the last thing that I really want to talk about, because it's on the Rift, it matters. There's some cool replay things going on that Riot wants to do, and there's some updates to the client. But this video is already pretty long, and I just want to get you the information that you need for what you're going to encounter on the Rift. If you want to, go ahead and read those notes. There's some pretty cool stuff going on. The last small thing that I wanted to talk about that does apply to the Rift is for our junglers. Raptors now have a lower base damage, but more health. So we'll see where that goes, but I think the difference is going to be really minimal at lower elo. Pros have been abusing Raptors for a while now. I kind of want to see where they go with this. Anyway, I think that just about wraps this patch up for everything you're going to see on Summoner's Rift. Again, I do apologize for the late upload. I shouldn't see it happening again. I checked on Tuesday for the patch notes and I couldn't see them. Otherwise, this would have been out Tuesday night. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Please comment what you think is the biggest change or the most interesting or the one that pisses you off the most. Go ahead and leave that in a comment. If you liked it, go ahead and like it. If you really liked it, go ahead and subscribe. And if you hated it, feel free to hit that dislike button. I don't judge. All right. Thank you, everyone, and I will see you for another This Week in Bronze. I'm going to cover more boring ass shit because you guys like that. I kind of want to touch the mental part of League of Legends, some of the things that go through your head and how they affect your gameplay. Anyway, that's a sneak peek. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you in another This Week in Bronze.